Hello and welcome to today's Understanding Your Electricity Bill, Usage, Costs, and Opportunities to Save webinar. For this webinar, attendees will be in a listen-only mode. If you need technical assistance, please submit your request under the Tech tab in the window in the top right-hand corner of your computer screen. If you wish to submit a question during the presentation, please use the Q&A window in the top right-hand corner of your computer screen. We will try to answer all questions during the webinar, but if an in-depth answer is needed, or if we run out of time, we will try to answer your question at a later time via email. It is now my pleasure to turn the presentation over to Fatima Finnegan. Fatima?
Welcome. My name is Fatima Finnegan, and we are so pleased to have you join us today. And it's important to us at the Ontario Restaurant, Hotel and Motel Association that we continue to tackle the issues that are top of mind for the hospitality industry. We at ORMA represent 11,000 members in both the food service and the accommodation sector. Our membership comprises of hospitality operators of all shapes and sizes, independent, corporate, franchised, small and large. Our members are restaurants, hotels, motels, resorts, banquet halls, and others. And a common thread to all is energy. We've all heard about how this past year has been difficult, and we've never heard more the words pivot and unprecedented. Because of COVID, many operators now are looking at all the line items, and now more than ever, energy is top of mind. We have received an unprecedented amount of calls with members asking about how to save on energy. And here's what we're hearing. We're hearing that the system is too complicated. It's too much paperwork. We never know who to talk to. There's no time, and that their utility is only there to print their monthly invoice. This is why we needed to come together with this educational webinar to help answer some of these questions and to give you some direct contacts to ask those hard questions. Now more than ever, operators are taking the time to get the answers. And that's why we're so pleased to have you join us today. So rest assured, we are here to help, and we will continue to be here to help you.
Thank you, Fatima, for having us here today. We really appreciate it. So I wanted to take a quick look at electricity invoice and kind of walk through the different components that make up your power bill on a monthly basis. And as we go through it, I'll also provide some insight on potential opportunities to reduce costs or avoid risk for each one of these items. So we'll first take a look at the electricity cost, which is really the price of electricity. Then the delivery charges, the cost to get the electricity to your doorstep. And then the regulatory charges, which are really the cost to operate the system here in the province of Ontario. And then lastly, we'll touch on the Ontario electricity rebate, which some of you do receive based on the size of the meter that you have. And then take a look at consumption information that is also on your monthly power bills. So first, with respect to your electricity charges, there's really three different options that you have available to you. And the province has really emphasized providing choice to the consumer, especially for residential and low volume consumers. So first off, if you are a residential or low volume consumer, you do have the option to use the regulated price plan. And there's really two different options underneath the RPP. The first one is actually the time of use. So a lot of you are probably familiar with this because most of our homes have smart meters. So the usages and the applicable pricing for those usages are based on off, mid, and on peak periods. And you can see on these wagon wheels here when those off, on, and mid peak periods are during the summer, the winter, and then obviously weekends and holidays are considered off peak periods. So There are higher prices during on-peak and obviously much lower prices during off-peak. And once again, you can see here, they change every 6 months to reflect where the costs of electricity are going. The second option under the regulated price plan is actually the two-tier rate. So this is what I would call sort of the older system. Really what happens here is for residential consumers in the winter, for the first 1,000 kilowatt hours you consume, you pay a lower rate. Anything above that, you pay a little bit of a higher rate. So it's sort of a step function. In the summer, that first threshold actually comes down to 600 because obviously air conditioning is more of a nice to have, not a need to have, versus heating your home during the winter, which is obviously a need to have. And for small businesses, which most ORMA members would fall into, the threshold is actually 750 kilowatt hours across the year. And once again, you can see those rates change every 6 months. And similar to the time of use, we just saw a little bit of a decrease here as of May 1st. The third option with respect to pricing is really the deregulated option. So this is actually going to the hourly Ontario energy price plus what's known as the global adjustment, which I'll touch on in a moment. But first, the price of electricity in the province, which is illustrated here with the red line, is actually quite low. It's been low since about 2008, which is reflective of a couple of things, but primarily the reduced demand in the province. Unfortunately, though, we have generation contracts in place, and obviously we need to pay for those. So those are sort of captured or subsidized through the global adjustment charge, which is this blue line here. So if you were to leave the regulated price plan, you would in fact be paying the average or the total of the two, which is this green line here. And one important thing to note is as of January 1st, the global adjustment actually changed significantly. The province took about 15 to 16% of those total costs, moved them out of the global adjustment, so our power bills, and shifted them over to general taxes. So ultimately, we are seeing a decrease in the costs per unit on our electricity bills, and we would have seen a similar change with respect to the regulated price rates as of January as well, to reflect that movement of costs from our power bills to the general taxes. So the question we often get from ORMA members is, what's my best course of action? And unfortunately, it's not a straightforward answer, and really it depends. So first and foremost, throughout COVID, the province has been doing as much as they can to help out the smaller residential consumers. So as people move out of their offices and into their homes, ultimately, they've looked at freezing the rates to the off-peak periods, which has obviously helped reduce our bills and things of that nature. So they've really been subsidizing or showing preference to those regulated price rates, which has benefited them. But when we look more historically, and I would suggest even moving forward, the HOEP-GA or the regulated or deregulated option has traditionally been cheaper than the regulated price rates that are available from the province. And other benefits associated with leaving the RPP are that you're actually able to actively manage your price of electricity. As I showed you there, it's actually quite low, but it is increasing gradually over time. So that is increasing the importance of looking at managing that line item. As well, there's also something known as the variance settlement factor, which is it's currently a credit, it could be a charge, which is really a true up for when you leave the regulated price plan. So when it is a credit, it almost implies that those regulated rates have been a little bit of a premium over the deregulated rates. So currently that's sitting at a slight credit. So if you were to leave the RPP, that would be reflected on your bill in the month that you left. As well, it does give you opportunity to implement global adjustment mitigation strategies. Since the global adjustment is actually applied to all consumption, it's not dependent on time of use during peak times, it does create some unique opportunities to deploy some conservation efforts, say in the middle of the night, and the impact of those changes actually reduces your total cost the same way in the middle of the day and in the middle of the night. As well, you can look to sort of better manage your power costs through budgeting exercises, and once again, looking at fixing the power price moving forward. So taking a look at the regulated charges, these are sort of death and taxes. They're items that are heavily regulated by the Ontario Energy Board, and it's really the cost to get the electricity to your doorstep. And for the most part, that is sort of on a local level and then more of a provincial level. So there is local distribution, and this is typically where local distribution companies or LDCs like Toronto Hydro, this is where they make their money for providing the distribution of electricity to your doorstep. But there's also the interprovincial long-haul transmission of electricity, say from the generator to Toronto Hydro, which needs to be recuperated on your bill as well. So oftentimes for low volume consumers, so anyone under 50 kilowatts of demand, these charges are based on what you consume each month. So how many kilowatt hours did you consume, multiplied by the regulated rate. And sometimes they're actually combined, as you can see here on our example bill. For larger users, these charges are often based on their demand, or kilowatts. And this kilowatts is really the maximum or peak usage in a given hour during a billing month. So not so much how much they consumed, but more importantly, what was that peak usage during the billing cycle. And for these larger users, oftentimes the distribution and transmission charges are broke down further. And then, as I mentioned, they're based on their peak demand for the month, not on their consumption. So that is a bit of a unique difference from what most of you might see on your bill on a monthly basis. Now, lastly, the regulated charge. This is really the cost of operating the system in the province. And it's pretty consistent across the province, and it's based on your consumption or kilowatt hours consumed. It's not an overly onerous charge, but obviously something that needs to be taken care of on a monthly basis. So the last line item that I wanted to hit on in terms of cost is the Ontario electricity rebate, or the OER. And this credit is actually applied to your total pre-tax amount on your electricity bill. So it is quite a significant benefit to those that actually qualify. And this credit actually is applicable to all sort of multi-residential or residential consumers and low volume consumers who use less than 250,000 kilowatt hours a year or have a demand less than 50 kilowatts. Now, this OR is an important piece because the old credits that existed prior to the OER coming in place, you needed to satisfy both of these. The new regime under the OER, it is one or the other. So we often find quite a few of the ORMA members are not getting the credit because they may have met one of them, but not both of them. So it's important to look at your bill, and obviously we're available to assist with that if you need it. With respect to what this credit looks like, it has been coming down over time. At its peak, it was at 33.2%, and right now we're sitting just under 19%. And for larger users who were previously receiving it but are no longer eligible, they have started to grandfather it, and it's actually recently just been extended out until October 2022. So that is an added benefit for those that were receiving it historically. So taking a look, just the last part of the bill at the electricity consumptions, some of the important pieces of information you want to glean from this. What was the billing period, sort of a start and an end date? How many days are in the billing cycle? Is it an actual read or is it an estimate read? If you see prolonged estimate reads, that might raise a flag for you. How many units? So if you had an apartment building, there might be 100 units there. But ultimately, you get down to what the consumption was, which needs to be adjusted for line loss. So basically, when the power is generated and shipped to your doorstep, there is a bit of a line loss. So they typically are always gross up that amount to account for how much electricity was generated and then shipped to you. And then you see your peak demand. In this case, it's at 45 kilowatts and kVA, which that helps them establish what the power factor is or how efficiently you're using electricity. And if you take kilowatts divided by kVA and it comes in less than 90%, oftentimes you're paying a bit of a premium. Because you're not using the electricity they sent you very efficiently. So that does create some opportunities for conservation efforts. And then lastly, I just wanted to show a bit of information with respect to how usages within the restaurant sector look since COVID hit. So the blue line in both of these graphs are pre-COVID, and then the orange lines are the most recent 12 months during COVID. And we've broken it out to those that were impacted significantly. So we saw over 25% reduction in their power usages versus those that were impacted more moderately, where they only saw less than a 25% decrease. And I say only because weather alone could account for 10% up or down in a given year. But what's interesting is when we did start to break the data apart between those two groups, you can see the difference in how their profiles of usages, their proportion of usages across the hours of the day have shifted dramatically. So for those that were impacted significantly, it's almost as though their consumption has been stretched out, that line's been pulled out, which does benefit them to a certain extent because more of their usages are during the off-peak hours or the cheaper periods of the day. But you do see this accentuated spike in usages and then tailing off towards the mid part of the day, which could be a function of potentially just a lunch offering and no dinner service. When you compare that to those that were moderately impacted, we still see a similar trend here earlier in the day. But as we start into the normal sort of business hours, you can see that those proportional usages are off, but then start to creep above as we hit early afternoon, but then really start to fall off as we head into early and late evening here. So not quite certain what this is telling us, but it is quite interesting that across the dozens of properties that we looked at, we saw similar trends when we broke the data into the significantly impacted and the moderately impacted in terms of power usages. So thank you very much, and I'd like to turn it over to Rob.
Thanks. It's my pleasure today to join you to talk about the incentives for energy savings and food service. I think you're going to find that we've got some great programs and support for you. So the agenda, we'll talk a little bit about who we are and the Save on Energy brand, the new CDM framework that's in market for the next 4 years. Then we'll get into programs and support that is available to you through the Save on Energy programs. So first of all, I don't blame you if you haven't heard of us, the Independent Electricity System Operator. We operate the grid in Ontario 24/7. So anything to do with electricity, we're managing that. And we have relationships, of course, with the local distribution companies where you get your power from. We create electricity market efficiencies. We plan for the Ontario future energy needs. We look at renewables and innovation. But today I'm going to be talking to you about the province-wide energy conservation programs. So that framework I talked about, we've just launched. And the great news is that it's another 4-year framework from 2021 to 2024 that will allow people to really plan their retrofits and take advantage of incentives in the electricity market for the next 4 years. It's centrally delivered by ourselves, the IESO, under the Save on Energy brand. and I hope that brand is familiar to us. It's been in market for about 10 years. We're targeting commercial operations, institutional, industrial as well, with opportunities for residential consumers, and also renewed programming for income eligible electricity consumers and on reserve First Nation communities. Before I get into the opportunities that are available to you, I think it's fun to maybe reflect a little bit and see what we've accomplished over the number of years. The first one is staggering, really. Ontario has saved 17.3 terawatt hours. It's a big number, but to put it in context, it's enough power for 1.9 million homes for 1 year. And we've achieved those savings through conservation initiatives since 2006. And when you think about it, that's half the size of Toronto, for a year. So that's really staggering, and that helps businesses thrive and residents save money on their bill, and it's good for the grid. Okay, so look at that on the right side. 80 million energy efficient actions have been undertaken since 2011, the past 10 years. And those are coupons being redeemed by residents, and inefficient fridges and stoves being taken out of service, and of course participating in programs like we're going to be talking about, where businesses are able to invest in their companies, their businesses, and we're providing incentives to help them. So specifically with regards to what programs are available to you, I want to start with this one. It's the Small Business Lighting Program, and the reason I want to start with it is because there's $2,000 up for grabs for you for your location. We have entered into agreements ourselves at IESO and the Save on Energy brand with Save on Energy representatives. They are going to contact you, or you contact us, and we'll do an assessment of your facility, and they can offer you up to $2,000 of LED lighting free of charge, and they'll be installed by a licensed contractor. If you elect to do more than the $2,000 that's available, then you'll be able to proceed with that, and you'd get incentives for the rest of that. And again, that would be a one-stop shop with that Save on Energy representative. So we're also adding to that, and we're looking at adding HVAC and refrigeration. So, and you will all have these measures in your establishments. So stay tuned, because in the fall we'll be adding those measures and those types of opportunities for you to save electricity through HVAC and refrigeration through the same vehicle, small business program, direct install, no cost to you. So that's exciting. Demand control kitchen ventilation is something that I'm sure you're all familiar with, those range hoods. What we want to do is better regulate the temperature of your kitchen, and that's seasonal, whether too hot or too cold, depending on the season. Reduce noise levels for your staff and your customers, and of course cut energy costs. So by the installation of advanced sensors, which are measuring visual smoke and temperatures, that can ramp up or decrease, wind down the ventilation of those fans, rather than them running the whole time you're in. When you come in and when you leave, they're able to run on a variable rate, and that can save you a lot of money on your bill, both gas and electricity. So you may have heard of this in the past, and this was predominantly an Enbridge program. Last year, we partnered with Enbridge, Save on Energy, and so what happens in this case is, again, this Enbridge and Save on Energy representative will contact you. They come in, do the assessment, the licensed contractor installs these measures at your establishment, and all the paperwork is done, and there's no cost to you, and both the savings for gas and electricity are done at the same time. Retrofit is really, really popular program. It's been around for a very long time, and And as its name indicates, it's used for retrofitting equipment. Older equipment, inefficient equipment like incandescent lamps and fluorescent lamps and lighting to LED, or old inefficient refrigeration equipment and rooftop units and that sort of stuff, to a more efficient, more efficiency, and you're able to save money on your bill that way. So what we've are really enhancing is what we call a prescriptive list, and that's for lighting, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, manufacturing, and other equipment which wouldn't really apply to you. But the notion behind that is you will do an assessment, you look at your facility and say, I need to replace this many lamps, or I need to, my rooftop unit, or I need to do some controls, and you'd say I have X amount of those that I need to replace. And then you'd look at the application process and it'll say, we'll give you X amount dollars for each one. And then away you go. So you submit your application. And so you're investing in your business, but you're receiving rebates or incentives back. With this enhanced prescriptive track, we're looking at a quicker pre-approval of your applications and quicker incentive payments. The previous custom track has been discontinued, and as a result of that, there are some measures that used to go through that custom way. Like I want to implement this measure, and you'd say it's going to save me this much electricity, and we would pay you X amount of dollars for that per kilowatt or kilowatt hour. That's no longer in stream. So what we're really looking at doing is enhancing the prescriptive measures, and so twice yearly we will be revisiting that, republishing that list of measures, enhancing them, bolstering them, and looking at the incentive rates as well to make sure that they're driving participation in energy efficiency. So stay tuned for that. These are, of course, some of the measures that we are referring to with the lighting track. You'll see them all on the left side there. And that can be troffers, integrated lights, and just simply replacing tubular fluorescent with tubular LED. So that won't be news to you, I don't think, at all. And also the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. When we talk about the rooftop units, you can get up to $5,780 replacing a rooftop unit, an energy efficient unit. And you know, it's interesting to really pursue that, because the more energy efficient unit you get, rather than just perhaps putting in a vanilla or a plain Jane one, over time that's going to be payback, because it will result in a lower electricity bill, and over time that's going to be money, bottom line for your business. This one is quite new. It's been in market for about a year. It's called the Distributor Discount Program, and what it is are discounts of up to $1,000 for the purchase of Energy Star commercial kitchen equipment. So the idea is the Energy Star is branded, and it's efficient. And again, rather than buying some inefficient commercial kitchen equipment, you get the Energy Star brand. And of interest, it's not just new equipment. It's also for previously owned equipment. And I can imagine with some of the restaurants having closed up and some of the stock available, you may want to entertain either pre-owned or new. And it's both for gas and electric appliances. So it's ovens, fryers, steam cookers, broilers, and then in the electricity side, refrigerators, freezers, ice machines. And what's interesting is it's available to you through your existing relationship, your equipment distributors. And no paperwork, no waiting, it's point of purchase. Make sure to ask them about it. Make sure that when you talk to them, and they should be telling you about it as well. We'd say, hey, tell me about this where I can get some money up front for buying a more efficient piece of kitchen equipment. The other thing that we're offering you is a lot of support, tips and tricks, case studies, these sorts of things. And this is a really neat one, and I really hope that you visit our website and take a look at these. This is something we call Spot the Savings, and this is our resident guru, energy efficient guru, Stephen Dixon. And what he's done is he's visited a typical restaurant with a film crew, and he's just gone through and he's spotted opportunities for savings. That's lighting, refrigeration, the energy star appliances I was talking about, heating, ventilation, air conditioning. But the one what's really interesting that I want to talk to you about is the low cost and no cost measures. There are a number of opportunities right in front of you where you can make changes operationally in behavior and save money on your bill. And the other thing is of interest is how and when you use electricity, because there is a cost for the time of day when you use electricity. So how about we play that video, the low cost, no cost. It's less than a minute. And let's see what Stephen has to say to help us out.
A lot of restaurants have a lot of no-cost, low-cost opportunities. Let's take, for example, this TV over here. Looks like it's turned off, but it may be using power. I've got a little power meter hooked up over here. I'm gonna have a look at it. Look at that, 100 watts, and it's not doing anything. That's waste. Let's get this thing shut off. Next, we're gonna take a look at the windows. In the theme of low cost, no cost, I always like to check windows. Check the weather stripping, make sure there's no drafts. That way we're saving energy summer and winter, and we're creating a better environment for our customers. Thermostats, another great low cost, no cost opportunity. Making sure that we control temperature properly, set the temperatures up, set the temperatures back when we're not here, and making sure that we use the fan auto off switch in the auto position if we don't need the fan to run all the time. A great way to save electricity.
So I hope you enjoyed that. And you can see the idea behind that is taking a look at your operations and starting there and going, hey, what can I do myself? You know, engage my team, engage my staff, take a look at some things that you don't typically look at and say, you know, I can do these things and I can save money on my bill and impact my bottom line. The other thing are the case studies I mentioned. And here's a great one, the Iron Skillet in Collingwood, where they took advantage of some programs, refrigeration and lighting that were available to them, offered at that time. And you know, it just kind of tells the story about being a typical operator of a restaurant and then understanding about what the opportunities are and implementing them. And it's fun. And so there's a video a part of that and other components that other case studies that are on our website. So I guess the last thing is I really want to emphasize that we're here to support you. The Save on Energy brand and the IESO for the electricity side, Enbridge as well. We have funding available through the Ontario government, ratepayer funding that we're all paying into to help you save money on your bill. And I'm looking forward to the panel discussion and the questions, because we're going to get into over and above just saving money on your bill and the benefits of investing in your business. So all sorts of email address, phone number, people are going to pick up the phone. They're going to talk to you about what's available to help you save money on your bill. There are training opportunities that you can get involved in. And lastly, I'd ask you to sign up for our Save on Energy business newsletter, so you're in the know. We're going to email it every couple of months and get you up to date on what's going on. And a good example of that's going to be when the new small business programs are going to be marketed in the fall, which is going to include the HVAC and refrigeration, and any updates to those prescriptive lists and anything else that's coming out. Perhaps we're going to have another event that the IESO might be supporting or hosting or something. So I implore you to sign up to that. So thanks very much. That's it for me. And again, I look forward to some questions and participation in that panel. Thanks.
Okay, that was a nice, smooth cascading effect. We're all connected. So thanks, guys. Well done. Very informative. We've got a number of questions. Fatima, let me start with you, if you don't mind. ORMA does an amazing job for its members. You have all kinds of great programs that help your members save costs and get engaged in different activities that they're not even aware of in some cases. So tell us how the relationship with ECNG came to light and how a restaurant can get in touch with you and ECNG related to their program, please.
Thank you, Chuck, and thank you everyone for joining us today. We at ORMA have been working with ECNG, Paul, I'm going to say 26 years. And every year we go through an RFP process and we continue to nurture the relationship, information that ECNG electricity program for our members. We have a 1, 3, and sometimes a 5-year program, but we speak to each member individually because this is not a one-size-fits-all or a same paintbrush for every single operator. So we actually speak individually to every operator to see if this is a program that works best for them, and we will advise them accordingly.
Perfect. Paul, we had a question in from one of the viewers today that was asking about global adjustment, which you addressed in your presentation. He was saying that it's used to be seen as a credit, but now he believes it's seen as a cost. Can you talk to that point, please?
Yeah, it's absolutely correct. That's a great question. Prior to 2008, it actually was a slight credit on your bill known as the provincial benefit. Then when the recession hit, we saw the price of electricity actually come down in the province, which meant we had to provide a little more subsidy to generation capacity in the province, in particular green generation, which is obviously one of the more expensive forms. They were getting larger subsidies to add generation to the province. But also other forms of generation started receiving subsidies as that price fell. So over time, the global adjustment, the cost of those generation contracts grew. So instead of it being on the price of electricity, it was being layered into the global adjustment cost. We are starting to see it come back to, I'll call it normal, but it is starting to reverse a bit of direction there. And as I mentioned, those green contracts have now been taken out of that global adjustment pie and put into general taxes, which is a huge benefit, not just for us at home, but also all consumers in the province, including our businesses, as we'll see a reciprocal drop in our total cost of electricity moving forward.
Got it. And Rob, you showed us one of Stephen's videos. I know there's a number of them on your website, and it would have been great to have looked at them. I've seen those before. For the benefit of the viewers, can you walk them through some other recommendations to reduce their energy costs and consumption, please?
Yeah, for sure. I think again, when you walk through, and so we have 6 videos and they're all about a minute or so, and so that's going to give you a lot of opportunity to jot a few notes down and walk around. So there will be opportunities that you probably wouldn't have thought about, but that you'll see in the videos. But the other ones are just closing doors on refrigeration and getting the discipline to do that. Talk to your staff and make sure stuff like that happens. Turn lights off in the back that you aren't using, and whether, I don't know if we can get embark on some training or you make it a fun and a game and a challenge, is just to be cognizant of how and when you use electricity as a team, both in the kitchen, which you have a lot of control, and then out in the serving area. So I think they're a really great place to start are those videos, and plus we've got case studies and tips and tricks on the website.
Okay, got it. Paul, another question for you. In case the viewers aren't quite sure what ECNG does, what's a typical conversation that you have with the restaurant in terms of what you look at, how you help them? Again, I think your service is amazing. A lot of people may not know exactly how deep of a dive you guys take.
Yeah, it's a good point. And the questions and interactions we have with the ORMA members are diverse. We get all kinds of phone calls and emails asking a variety of questions. Sometimes they have someone knocking at their door trying to sell them gas or electricity, and they want help evaluating those options. But also, why does my bill look like this? Or what's going on here? Or is there an opportunity I can take advantage of, like the Save on Energy programs that Rob talked at length about? It's really looking at all things energy, whether it be the price per unit, consumption, or even regulatory affairs. ECNG covers the spectrum, and we should be your first call, is the way that we normally look at it, especially for the ORMA members.
Okay. So Fatima, going back 26 years ago, when you guys started to discuss things with ECNG, what was the driver? Were you hearing comments from the restaurant and hotel motel space about energy issues and concerns? Like, where did everything start?
I think we, as an association, looked at the top cost centers, and aside from labor, energy is one of the top two cost areas. So we needed, as an association, to collaborate on something collectively that we can help large and small operators.
Got it. Rob, I know the
Chuck, can I?
restaurant. Sure. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Well,
I was
I
gonna.
was just gonna jump up for a moment because Fatima really hit something there. That you've got fixed costs, rent, labor, food, but energy is actually quite a bit when you break it down. The operations, the costs, and that is the one expenditure that you actually have control of how and when you use it, and to take advantage of funding, et cetera. So I think what you want to do, is one, get involved, be aware. So decide to do something about it. I'm going to get involved and look at my energy. And maybe now's a good time too, with things a little less busy in your businesses, if that's the case. Second is take advantage of those direct install programs that I mentioned earlier. Many of them, there's very no or low cost to you, and you can go ahead and implement those. And then look at those programs that we talked about, where you have to invest, you have to pay, but you get money back. So you can take control, invest in your business, and that's going to result in savings on your bill. That is something you have control of.
Got it. Yeah. Good point. Good point. So, Rob, you talked about the partnership that IESO has with Enbridge, which is great. I know some of the details related, and you walk through the natural gas and electricity consuming equipment. For the benefit of the viewers today, what should they be asking their equipment dealers when they walk in? They're looking for a new fryer, looking for a new fridge.
Right.
What should they ask? What should they do?
Yeah, and to be clear, I should have said we've got 33 distributors in market. So if you contact your distributor, they may not be in the program. I should clarify that. We've had more than 500 purchases in Ontario so far since that was launched, which really shows a lot of folks investing in energy efficiency in their business. And one of the things I'm thinking about is maybe ghost kitchens, and it'd be fun to talk about that in a minute if we have time. But contact your distributor and say, look, I've got some inefficient equipment. I hear there's programs available through ratepayer funding, through Enbridge and Save on Energy, and I would like to look at some Energy Star efficient equipment. And so if you lead that way, if they're a part of that distributor discount program, you're going to be able to get up to $1,000 discount on that equipment at point of purchase, right there, no paperwork. So that's the very first thing that Fatima said earlier when we first started was, this stuff is not easy. You're busy with running your business, okay? But this is important stuff, and it can really impact your bottom line. So we're here to help, but you also have to be aware and make the step, and we're there to support you.
Got it. Okay. Paul, another question for you. Restaurants get pitched all the time on electricity contracts by various vendors. What are some of the tips that you would suggest over to them as they're looking at potentially entering into an electricity contract?
That's one of the more popular ones, as I mentioned, and oftentimes what we're seeing is analysis being presented where they're going to cut your power bill down substantially, or the sky is falling in terms of the price of electricity going through the roof. I did mention earlier, we do anticipate it to start creeping up, and hopefully the global adjustment starts coming down, but we're not expecting it to skyrocket anytime in the near future. So, the opportunities on that are not as great as some of the conservation efforts, which Rob's talked quite a bit about. But that's often what we get into, is just more debunking or helping see the forest through the trees in terms of here's where the actual opportunity lies and the magnitude of it, because unfortunately you can't escape the global adjustment, which still is the largest part of your power bill for the most part. So it's one of those things that you really got to know what you're looking for, and that's oftentimes what we help out the members with.
Okay, that's great. So we are right on time, exactly. This is great. You guys have done a perfect job from a timing perspective. So what we're going to do for everybody that's with us today is we're going to send a link of the webinar and also the contact details for ORMA, ECNG, and the IESO, so you can reach out to them and ask some questions. But on behalf of Fatima and Paul and Rob, thanks everyone for joining us today. And I think today's webinar is done. We look forward to the next one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. We hope this information and guidance was helpful. We stand united with you during these difficult times and are proud to work with our energy partners who are also committed to standing alongside with you. These are difficult times, and make no mistake about it, we have a long road ahead of us, but recovery will occur. We will get there. We are tough, and we are hospitality. We cannot wait to open our doors to have the biggest bye-bye COVID celebration. Thank you again. Stay safe, stay well.